Okay, good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming this morning. The title of this talk this morning is called Filthy Rich Portlets 2.0. And it reminds me of a talk I gave at JSF 1 back in 2008. It was recorded, it was published on D-Zone. It was called Filthy Rich Portlets with Liferay and ICEfaces. And so much has happened since then. We've had Portlet 2.0 has become popular. JSF 2.0 has come out since then. New bridge technologies, and so now we're at Filthy Rich Portlets 2.0, and this is subtitled Developing JSF 2 Portlets with ICEfaces, AlloyFaces, and LiferayFaces. My name is Neil Griffin, and I'm a principal architect at Triton Services. And I'm also a lead developer. I'm co-founder of a website called PortletFaces.org, and we're going to talk a little bit about this website today. I'm a certified trainer for ICEfaces and for Liferay Portal. I happen to represent Liferay on the expert group for JSF 2.2, and I'm a contributing author to this book, which is the JSF 2 Complete Reference. My role in this book was to bring the reference material in the back up to date for JSF 2. Also, there's an appendix in the back that talks about ICEfaces 1.8 for use within portals. Triton is a Liferay Platinum partner. This is the highest level of partnership that a company can have with Liferay. We're a reseller of the Liferay Enterprise Edition. And for government customers, we have GSA scheduled pricing. We provide lots of different services. We have professional services for Liferay, for JSF in general, ICEfaces in particular. We do architecture, consulting, and training. We also offer full project management and development services using an agile methodology based on Scrum. Well, here's our agenda for today. First, we'll discuss the JSF standard. We'll move on to ICEfaces and a new product which is called ICE Push. We'll discuss the Portlet standard. We've covered two standards so far. There's yet a third standard, which is the Portlet Bridge standard. Then we'll talk about an implementation which is called the PortletFaces Bridge. We'll move to two projects which are LiferayFaces and AlloyFaces, and we're going to look at the benefits that they can bring to our development. Then I'm going to fire up Liferay IDE. Actually, this is Liferay Developer Studio, which is basically a prepackaged version of Eclipse that comes for Liferay Enterprise Edition customers. And I'm going to develop a portlet before your eyes and deploy it and run it. And then we're going to discuss the different types of inter-portlet communication techniques that we have. Well, first let's discuss JSF. We're here at Ajax JSF Summit, and so this is probably well known to a lot of folks here. First we had JSF 1.1, JSF 1.2. More recently we finished JSF 2.0 and 2.1. And currently the expert group for JSF 2.2 is JSR 344. We convened this expert group in April of this year. There's a very aggressive timetable. We hope to be done by December of this year. And right now we're on track to do that. I hope we make that deadline. That would set a record, I think, for a JSR. They don't normally move this fast. So. Well, let's talk about ICEfaces. ICEfaces is an open source, Ajax-enabled suite of UI components for JSF. Well, that's kind of a mouthful. What does that mean exactly? Well, JSF in general just comes with a few components, a text box, button, things like that. And so ICEfaces fortifies JSF with lots of different components. Welcome, come on in. Lots of different components, and it automatically determines the updates that are required within the browser. This is a great feature. The brand name for this is called Direct to DOM. So we have the suite of UI components, and we also have this automatic rendering of the updates in the browser. And also there's a companion product which is called ICE Push. ICE Push used to be part of ICEfaces. It was the Ajax Push mechanism within ICEfaces, and it's been more recently been refactored out into its own technology. And so now you can use ICE Push outside of JSF. You can use it in plain JSP or different types of frameworks. And that provides Ajax Push, or sometimes referred to as Comet or Reverse Ajax, for use within ICEfaces. there's two different open source communities. There's ICEfaces.org and ICEpush.org. And at ICEfaces.org, we've got over 100,000 community members, so we thank you if you're a member of ICEfaces.org. The folks at iSoft have recently released ICEfaces 2, and this is a very, very big release. This is a version of ICEfaces that is now fully compatible with JSF 2. So all the wonderful things that are now available to us in JSF 2, we can use within ICEfaces. As I said, the updates that need to take place within the browser are automatically detected by ICEfaces. So what that means is I don't have to write any JavaScript in my application at all. ICEfaces does all of that for me automatically. I started using ICEfaces, I think, in 2005. And I can probably count the number of lines of JavaScript I've had to write since then on one, maybe two hands. Okay, so I really can attest to the fact that it virtually eliminates the need to write JavaScript. And so it enables Java EE developers like ourselves to easily create and deploy these thin client, rich internet applications. And the great thing about ICEfaces 2 is it's heavily standards-based. So JSF 2 is the standard for developing web applications within Java EE. And ICEfaces simply extends and enhances this standard. And as I just indicated before, it's server-centric, which minimizes or eliminates my need to write JavaScript. Well, let's talk about one of the really fun features of ICEfaces and ICEpush. This is Ajax Push, and I have a little illustration here I'd like to talk about. So as developers, welcome, come on in. As developers, we can use ICEfaces and ICEpush to trigger what we call server-initiated rendering via Ajax Push. So I'd like to keep your eyes here at the bottom. We have ICEfaces here running in a little app server, and maybe we have a web service that's deployed there at our application server. Maybe we have a phone that's going to consume the web service. Maybe we have someone who's hanging out in a web browser and they click on something and that triggers some type of event. Or maybe we have a stock price that's changing, and we need to alert other users that are looking at our application of these events that are taking place. And so what ICEfaces does is it runs the JSF lifecycle and it automatically figures out what needs to be inserted into the DOM in other browsers, and then uses Ajax Push in order to provide those incremental DOM updates. And I'm going to show you how this works today. I have a demo. This is a demo of a product called BitCanvas, and this is, let me just show you here. This is going to show an iPhone, which is actually a native application for the iPhone, written in Objective-C. And this customer wanted to be able to tweet basically from a phone or from within a portlet within Liferay Portal. And so what we did is we had the phone consume a web service which triggers ICEpush, which will then update the portlets in the browser. So before I show you the demo, let me just describe the product. BitCanvas is a social networking platform, and it integrates Liferay and ICEfaces and ICEpush together and has this nice mobile integration. This was developed by Triton, the company I work for, on behalf of the White Canvas group. And so if you're interested in this, let us know and we'll put you in touch with the folks at the White Canvas group. Well, let's go back to the demo here. I have an iPhone simulator running right here. And let me bring up Firefox. And in order to show this effectively, I have to shrink down the size of Firefox a little bit. Okay, and let me go to my bookmarks and log in to BitCanvas. Go to the test page. So what you see here is there happens to be two portlets here in this browser on the right. We have a microblogs portlet. Think of it kind of like a Twitter portlet. It's basically blog entries that are one or two sentences, that type of thing. There's a text limit. And this is a portlet that we developed that's using the Liferay Blogging Services API. We developed it with ICEfaces Tube. And so on the left, we have the iPhone simulator running this native app. And so maybe I want to do a tweet here. Hello from Ajax 2011. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Update. And what that will do is it will consume a web service and then do a push over here into this portlet running in the browser. So please maybe keep one eye here on the left and one eye here on the right when I click Update. Okay, and it just does a push over to here. Or maybe I can click in the portlet and delete that right there. And then back over in the app, just refresh it like that. Okay, so this is just one use case for ICE Push. And this is done with 3 lines of Java code and no JavaScript whatsoever. Okay, and so I'm going to show you how that works towards the end. All right. So that's our BitCanvas demo. So we've got a little bit of a taste of what ICEfaces does and how ICE Push provides Ajax Push for us within ICEfaces. Let's switch gears and just go back to talking about standards. We'll discuss the Portlet standard before we discuss the Bridge standard. Before we do, let's maybe have some terms that we need to define. Whenever I'm teaching in a class about JSF or Liferay, I like to talk to people and just define what we mean by some of these words. When we talk about the word portal, that means different things in the ears of different people, so I just want to tell you what I mean when I say the word portal. A portal is a framework for creating websites that aggregate different types of content and applications. A portlet is a term you're going to hear me speak about quite a bit in this presentation. It's just a region of a portal page, and it contains content or maybe some application functionality. It actually does something. We saw that microblocks portlet, right? That's some nice application functionality. So if you're a Java EE type developer, with respect to Java EE, it's just deployed as a WAR. It's just a web application, only a little more so. There's an additional descriptor. We're all familiar with web.xml, right, in our applications. There's another descriptor, which is called portlet.xml, that we need to add. And if we're going to have a Java-based portal, it needs to have what's called a portlet container implementation. And that would implement the portlet standard that we'll discuss right now. There have been 2 versions of the portlet standard, version 1 and version 2. And version 2 is what we're going to be discussing today. And that was released back in 2008. And that's implemented in Liferay 5 and Liferay 6. I'll be showing you Liferay 6 Enterprise Edition today. So a portal website is made up of pages. And so like any website, it has any number of pages. And each page contains 1 or more portlets on it. And so I have a diagram here where we've got 3 portlets, A, B, and C, and you can kind of arrange them any way you want. And Liferay Portal lets you kind of arrange them at runtime. Just kind of drag them all over the page and however you want to arrange them. And the goal here is to combine 2 or more portlets together in order to compose or make a composite type of application. Okay? And I'm going to try and demonstrate this idea later when we do inter-portlet communication. Do you have a question?
Do all these applications need to be the same domain, or can they be different domains?
Do you mean .com, .org?
Exactly.
You mean like that?
Yeah. Can you mix and match?
There's 2 kinds of portlets. There's what's called a local portlet, and then there's a remote portlet. If it's a local portlet, then it's all deployed at the same application server or servlet container like Tomcat. And of course, it would all be in the same domain at that point. If it's WSRP or remote portlets, then it's different. Then it could possibly be coming from different servers, anywhere on the network. So this talk focuses mostly on local portlets, but the Portlet Bridge standard just provide us with a remote capability called WSRP or Web Services for Remote Portlets.
For portal?
Yes.
Different part of portal is a portlet. Can the portlet be from a different platform like .NET?
Can it be from a different platform?
Yeah.
Yes, it can be. Typically, they're from a Java-based portal platform. Okay, so it's a standards-based portlet that's being rendered within the portal page.
So the portal is only a term in Java world. It's not
Right.
a cross-platform.
Right. Liferay Portal has the ability to have Google gadgets live on a page and things like that, and those are not, you can't necessarily refer to them as portlets, really. So from a Java perspective, Portlet is a Java type of technology. This is just a side note. I want to talk about Portlet form submission. The Portlet API is very, it's kind of Web 1.0 in nature. It does have some features to enable Ajax and things like that, but strictly speaking, if you just develop a portlet against the Portlet standard, you know, when you click on buttons, let's say, you know, we have our diagram here, Portlet A, B, and C. If I were to click on a button here in Portlet A, that would actually cause a postback, and the whole portal page gets re-rendered, which would cause Portlet B and Portlet C to re-render themselves. And so one of the issues here is I think that this can cause a disruptive experience for the end user, and I want to talk about how ICEfaces provides a great solution to this problem. Just a little side note. Let's discuss Liferay Portal. Triton, the company I work for, is a Liferay Platinum partner, so I do a lot of work with Liferay Portal. This is a great product. It's been in development for over 10 years now, and it's the world's most popular enterprise portal platform. Just to give you an idea of the footprint of Liferay on the earth, if you go to Google, they have different keywords that you can use. For example, you can type in URL. And this is a very P_L_ID is a very typical request parameter. And so here, this is reporting 1,240,000 web pages on the internet that have this. Another one we could do is web guest, like that. And this reports 67 million. Okay, maybe the truth is somewhere in between, between 1.2 and 67. But just to give you an idea, I mean, this product, just on public-facing websites, the number of deployments is staggering. And how many more companies are using Liferay Portal in their intranet, you know, where Google doesn't have access? How many developers in the world are using this? How many end users are using Liferay Portal? I mean, you may be using it, you don't even know it. Okay, so this is a great technology. It's going to be with us for many, many, many years, and it's open source. And there's an enterprise edition that's commercial open source, you know, still get the source code. So it's very low risk for your business. Great, great product. Now, strictly speaking, if you're going to have a portal product, you just have to have a portlet container that runs portlets. Well, Liferay is much, much more than that. It's actually what we call a portal server. And so what that means is you can have instances of the portlet container or of the portal on different domains. So you may have company1.com, company2.com, you know, all the way down. And each one is mapped to a different instance of the portal. So you can have one Tomcat with one Liferay serving up many, many, many different websites. And the data is all kind of stovepiped so that the users are kept separate from all these different instances, and all their data is kept separate. Liferay happens to implement the Portlet 2 standard. It also has lots of features, and it's got a built-in content management system. It's got social networking API built into it with open social integration. It's got over 60 portlets out of the box, very, very useful portlets out of the box that are there for you. And this is what we're going to focus on today, is this last bullet right here, that it's extensible with custom portlets. And I like to use JSF and ICEfaces to make portlets. The way you can deploy Liferay is very impressive. You can, you know, let's say your business has made a big investment in WebLogic application server, something like that, and a big investment in Oracle. Well, Liferay fits into that environment just fine. Maybe you've done Tomcat and MySQL, and maybe you're running on a Windows, Linux, what have you. So basically, you can pick your server container and your database server, or your application server, and it's Java, so it's write once, run anywhere, and so any one of these combinations in Liferay will work there. So this really helps reduce the barriers to adoption. Liferay Portal kind of fits in whatever architecture your business is already invested in. Just another side note, Liferay has had the ability to deploy JSF portlets since May of 2005. And that's about when I started using this technology. Okay, so we're moving right along in our presentation. We're going to talk about the Portlet Bridge standard now. So we talked, there's a JSF standard, there's a Portlet standard, and now there's a standard for making a bridge. If you're going to make a JSF Portlet, you need a bridge in order to bridge what's called the JSF lifecycle with the Portlet lifecycle. And there's been two versions of this. One would be for Portlet 1 and JSF 1.2, and the other would be for Portlet 2 and JSF 1.2. Well, what about JSF 2 and Portlet 2? Okay, that's the big question. As of this month, this is June 2011, there has not been a JSR filed. JSR is a Java specification request that's submitted to the JCP, the standards body. And we haven't submitted a JSR yet, but we are writing proposals. I've filed several issues at Apache, where we're gathering different proposals on the requirements for a bridge for JSF 2 and Portlet 2. But for today, you can actually use it. All the innovation has been done at portletfaces.org. Well, as I said earlier, JSF is the standard web application framework for Java EE. What about portlets? What's interesting is the portlets are a standard, okay? But it is not part of Java EE. It is a server-side Java technology, but it is not a Java EE technology, okay? And so if you want to use the Java EE web app standard within a portal, you need a bridge. We'll discuss that in a second. And that's what portletfaces.org is about. It's a community website, and the mission here, what we're dedicated to, is showcasing JSF as the premier framework for developing portlets. And I hope I can demonstrate that to you today. If you visit portletfaces.org, the main project there right now is called the PortletFaces Bridge. It's an open source project, and I'm the main developer of this project. And at heart, it enables JS2 applications to run as portlets within a standards compliant portlet container like Liferay has. And of course, it's optimized for use with ICEfaces and ICE Push. And I'm happy to announce that we had our production release of this. We were in beta for a while, and that took place in May of this year. The bridge is sponsored by Triton and also our European partner, Mimicom, our Swiss partner, and of course the kind folks at iSoft who make ICEfaces. They're also a sponsor of this project. Well, let's look at a demo of what a JSF2 portlet looks like. And all of these demos that I'm going to show you are available at portletfaces.org. You can just download the WAR and drop them within Liferay. But I'm going to go to Firefox here. Sign out. Okay. So I've got Firefox running, and I'm looking at an instance of Liferay Portal Enterprise Edition, which is just running on my laptop. And I have this portlet here, which is just called a JSF2 portlet. This is kind of a reference portlet we have at portletfaces.org, and it kind of kicks the tires of many of the features within JSF2. You can see here we just have a bunch of fields. This is a job application type of portlet. And so I'm going to apply for a job. So maybe I'll punch in my name here, Neil Griffin. We have some nice features in here that show off the Ajax features of JSF2. There's a little hint here that lets you show the different postal codes or zip codes you can enter. For example, if I type 32801, if I hit tab, what it's going to do is it's going to, let me zoom in a little bit here. If I punch in 32801, what that's going to do is it's going to pre-populate the city field and the state field. I'm just going to hit tab right there. And those updates took place via Ajax. I didn't have to write any JavaScript to do that. That was just with the standard Ajax tag that's present within JSF. And also within the bridge, we have a feature where you can do file upload. But the file upload feature that I just showed you requires a full page postback to take place. So that's why when you click on add attachment right here, it actually does a navigation to a different view, okay, in order to submit the document. So then, I submit my job application. It says, thank you for applying for a job. And you see here where it says, Dear Neil, that's actually something that was inserted into JSF2 Flash scope. Okay, so that's why I say this is kind of a little reference portlet that helps us test or kick the tires of all the different little features within JSF2. If I click on Submit Another Application, it brings me back to the main view. So we're testing out navigation rules and so on. Down here, if I click on Show Comments, right here, you can see how it will do a show hide right here. And that's testing out the Ajax tag. All right, back to the slides. Well, we've seen a JSF2 portlet. Now we're going to talk about ICEfaces 2 portlets and the benefits that they bring, especially to Liferay. One of the things, when I'm talking with customers about portlet technology, one of the things that I like to tell them about is this technology partnership that exists between iSoft and between Liferay. So if you're an ICEfaces Enterprise Edition customer and a Liferay Enterprise Edition customer, well, you enjoy the benefit of this technology partnership between these two companies. And so it's really quite a safe technology to use. If you're making an investment in portals and in JSF, it's all standards-based. There's a lot of backing from industry. And this partnership between these two companies means that these companies talk to each other at a technical level. So if you're having an issue, maybe today you have 1,000 users who are using your system. Tomorrow you have 1,001 users and there's some performance issue, something like that. Well, if you call Liferay and they're wondering if it's a problem with ICEfaces, or if you call the folks at iSoft and they're wondering if it's a problem with Liferay, they'll talk to each other in order to resolve this issue for you so that their mutual customers can benefit. Well, let's look at basically the same demo that's been done with ICEfaces. So I'll click here on this page called ICEfaces 2. A very similar looking portlet, but you can see the date of birth field. Now it has a nice little calendar component right here where I can just select a date. That's thanks to ICEfaces, because standard JSF doesn't have, more sophisticated components like that. Also, the Ajax that is taking place, I've been able to remove all of the Ajax tags from my view. So now if I type in 32801, ICEfaces has automatically Ajaxified the form for me. Also, if I have a file upload, this is an Ajax-based file upload right here, so I stay on the same view the whole time. I don't have to navigate away because of full page transition. So those are just some of the benefits that ICEfaces brings in order to enhance the user experience to make them filthy rich in their UI. ICEfaces 2 and the PortletFaces bridge can be used in Liferay 5.2 and also Liferay 6. Whether you're using the Community Edition or the Enterprise Edition, it will work in both. Also, Apache Pluto 2, that's actually the reference implementation for portlets, is Apache Pluto. It will work there too. If you're using a commercial portal product like WebSphere Portal or WebLogic Portal, iSoft is currently doing development and testing on those will be supported if you're an ICEfaces EE customer. Let's switch gears and talk about Liferay Developer Studio here. If you're using the Liferay 6.1 plugins SDK, now Liferay 6.1 hasn't been released yet. If you want to get a snapshot of the plugins SDK, you can get it from portletfaces.org. You can just visit there, and there's a link where you can download this. if you're using Liferay IDE or the Developer Studio in conjunction with this plugins SDK, then you can take advantage of developing JSF portlets right within this. Now, Liferay IDE is, strictly speaking, is just a bunch of it's a set of Eclipse plugins that you download yourself and you install just into your vanilla Eclipse, right? Well, Liferay Developer Studio is a pre-packaged Eclipse that has the plugins already in there that's provided to Liferay EE customers. And that's what I'll be showing you today. But you're able to just click File, New, and Liferay JSF Portlet, and it automatically includes the ICEfaces jars and dependencies. Before we actually look at Liferay Developer Studio, and I'm going to show you how to build a portlet, there's just two projects I want to talk about. First, LiferayFaces and AlloyFaces. The LiferayFaces project is also found at portletfaces.org, and the reason why this project is helpful is it exposes Liferay's API in a way that's very natural for JSF development. It also provides some facelet composite components. For example, Liferay UI Captcha, Liferay UI Input Editor, that's for a rich text editor, I'm going to show you that one. Liferay Security Permissions URL. It's not a comprehensive set of facelet composite components, but the ones that are more useful, more often used, are available. So if you've ever looked at the Liferay source code, you've probably seen some of these JSP tags under the hood. And so we want to make those same tags available to JSF developers. I skipped over this part about the LiferayFaces context. We're going to see that as well. If you're a JSF developer, you've worked with the Faces context before. Well, what we do is we provide a singleton, which is called the LiferayFaces context, which is it basically decorates the Faces context, but provides a bunch of utility methods that help you get into all things Liferay. So that's just a brief overview of this project. We also have another project at portletfaces.org, which is called AlloyFaces. And this enables JSF developers with the ability to leverage the Alloy UI project. So let's just take a look at that. Alloy.liferay.com. Alloy is a project that is focused on HTML5, CSS3, and JavaScript. And what AlloyFaces does is it provides some JSF components that enable you to use basically the HTML and the CSS part of Alloy UI, not so much the JavaScript widgets that are available. And I'm going to show you some of the benefits of this. Now, even just because this is built by Liferay, it doesn't mean that you need to have Liferay Portal in order to use this. This actually works in just a web application. Okay? This is just a technology that's all about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And so AlloyFaces lets JSF developers take advantage of this. There's some very nice tags, for example, AUI form, AUI column, AUI field set, and so on. I'm going to show you what those look like and the benefits that you get from using them. Well, let's jump into the Liferay IDE, or Liferay Developer Studio demo. This is going to be a coding demo where I'm going to build a portlet for you. And this is just a preview of what the markup is going to look like. You can see we've got a little bit of AlloyFaces, some ICEfaces going on in here. And this is going to be a portlet that it basically has a few fields so that I can send an email. It's, who is the email from, who is it to, what's the subject, the body, send. Okay, so it's a little form that lets me send an email. So I'm going to go over to Liferay Developer Studio. And what I'm going to do here is, let me focus in here, I'm going to click on File and then New, Liferay Project, right here. And I'll just give it a project name. I've done this many, many times before, so now I'm up to Demo 14 is the name I'm going to give to this one. I always like to use a new number, just in case. And so you can see here I've selected the Liferay 6.1 Plugins SDK snapshot. You need this in order to take advantage of this feature right now. And I have a copy of Liferay 6 Enterprise Edition running within Tomcat. And Portlet is already pre-selected for me. So I'll click on Next. And up here I have a few options. I can use the Liferay MVC, or I'm going to select JSF2 right here. Okay. It enables development of JSF2 applications using the LiferayFaces bridge. And I'll just hit Finish. And so Liferay IDE creates a new project for me. Right here it's called Demo 14 Project, Portlet, excuse me. And so let's just take a look at what's here. I've got a place where I can create some Java source code if I want. And also under the doc root folder, I've got a place where I can put my CSS, my facelet XHTML views, and it's automatically created one here which is called Portlet View Mode. Portlets have different modes. They have what's called View Mode, Edit Mode, and Help Mode. Let's just take a look at that. Go back to Firefox. If we go back to the JSF2 portlet right here, this is what's called Portlet View Mode. And I think it's a rather unfortunate term. I would rather use Portlet standard mode or normal mode or something like that, because I think the word view kind of interferes with model view controller. So when we're thinking about MVC, that's not what we mean here. We don't mean that type of view. This is Portlet normal mode or view mode. Well, there's also here, there's a little wrench. You can go to Preferences. This is, maybe I want the date format to be a little different. Maybe I just want a 2-digit year. So if I hit Submit right there, I can see now that my date right here is now a 2-digit year. So that would be called a portlet preference. The user prefers to see something a little bit different. And so we've seen view mode, we've seen edit mode. Also, I could click this button right here in order to navigate over to edit mode. And also, portlets have the ability to do help mode right here. If I click on help, it says this is some help. You know. So those are the 3 modes that are supported by portlets. And if we switch back over to Liferay IDE, we just have one facelet view here. We're just going to support portlet view mode at this time. The first thing I need to do is over here in the source code area, there's a little properties file that will be created for you. It's called Log4J Properties. And in this file, for your convenience, we have a little phase listener turned on. I'm going to actually comment that out so that we have a little bit less verbose output going on in the Tomcat log. So that's just going to make it a little easier for us to do the demo. So I'm just going to comment that out. And then I'm going to open up Portlet View Mode here. If I double click on it, it just brings it up in like an HTML editor. But Liferay IDE, or I should say Eclipse, has a feature which is called the web page editor. So I'm going to select the web page editor to open that up. Okay, and the benefit of the web page editor is it provides a kind of a design time approximation of what your view is going to look like when you run it. Okay, so it's a nice little visual help tool. And so that's what we'll use here to develop our portlet. Okay, so you can see that that Liferay IDE has just created this default view for us, and it's just, you know, hello world. Okay, just a hello world type of portlet. Well, I'm just going to clean this up just a little bit. I need to add a namespace here. I added a namespace for Alloy, right, for AlloyFaces, AUI right there. And I removed the hello world right there. It was just a little paste. So now let me show you some of the benefits of this drag and drop environment here. This is the palette. This is kind of like a little painter's palette. Painter has a paintbrush with a palette, and he's using colors to make his painting. That's kind of the analogy here. We're trying to paint a user interface. So if I scroll down here, down to AlloyFaces, okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find a form, okay, and I'm going to drag that down inside the body. And then I'm going to find a layout and drag that inside the form. And then I'm going to find a column and drag that inside the layout. And this is really nice. This uses CSS and divs to create multiple columns within my form, which is a lot nicer than using HTML tables, which are very expensive to render. So that's one of the benefits of AlloyFaces. And then inside of there, I'm going to find a field set. That renders just a standard HTML field set element. Okay. And one of the nice things about Liferay Developer Studio, or Liferay IDE, is that it has some autocomplete here, where I can punch in a label. Right? It shows me all the attributes that are available. And Liferay has this great feature. Let me just open this file. This is found in the Liferay source code. It's a file called language.properties. Okay? And let me just zoom in on it a little bit here. This is a file that contains roughly, I think, 5,000 keys, where it's just name equals value. You can see here name equals value. It's just a properties file. And these are US English is the default language. These are US English translations of different keys. And Liferay being open source, there's an army of developers all over the earth that speak different languages, and they're providing translations for all these keys for us. So one of the benefits of using LiferayFaces is that if there is a key that's already been translated for you, you can take advantage of that. Okay, you don't have to do the translation yourself. So there happens to be a key in here, which is called compose email. So let me find that. There it is. You can see this key right here, compose-email, right? And that's been translated here into US English, but it's also been translated into other languages. So if the user switches their language or their locale, it will automatically be translated for you. Well, let's go back to the view. And so what I can do here is in the label field, I can just do a little paste right here. Oops. A little paste. And this is using a little JSF expression language keyword, which is called I18N. Now, this is really bothering me. I've seen this I18N. Anyone ever seen that before? I18N? If you're wondering what it means, you know, like I couldn't sleep at night and I Googled this. There's 18 letters in the word internationalization. And as software engineers, we're notoriously lazy typists. And so someone figured out there's 18 letters in there, so they typed the letter I, 18, and then the letter N. So anyway, I kind of took advantage of that. So we have the I18N keyword. And if I pass in that Liferay key right there, then it will automatically render the correct translation in my portlet. So this I18N EL keyword is a feature from LiferayFaces. All right, moving right along. Let's, inside of this field set, let's put in a field. And this is going to be just who the email is from. Again, this is going to be a little portlet. This, who's sending the email, who am I sending it? Who is the sender, who is the recipient, what's the subject, what's the body. That's what we're trying to do. So we just have a little field set up and ready to go. And JSF has, standard JSF has an input text that I can use. Pretty that up a little bit. And let's zoom in and look at what happened. Okay. You can see here that the web page editor is trying to give us a design time approximation up here of what's going on. So we've got a little text box and a message that goes next to it. Maybe maybe it's going to be a required field, or maybe they typed in a bad value, and that's where we want the message to show up. And so that's just a JSF input text and an H:" So that's what we have so far. That's our portlet. Well, maybe we need a button as well in order to submit the form. So let's see, after the layout, I'll just put in a little button. And you can see the web page editor is trying to give us a little design time approximation. So we've got just a text box and a message next to it and a button. And the label on it is an internationalized key for send right here. Okay. Now what we need to do is we need to introduce the model concern into our portlet. We've been focusing primarily on the V and MVC. We've been making our view. So now let's start making our model. So that would just be a Java class. So I'm just going to go right here, do a new class. And maybe this will be package org.portletfaces.send email. And maybe we'll call this model bean, modelbean.java. Okay, so it's just a Java class, just a Pojo really. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put in some annotations. JSF 2 gave us a new annotation which is called @managedBean, and what that does is it provides me with a way of telling JSF that I want this to be managed by the JSF Managed Bean facility. It's basically a somewhat primitive inversion of control container. It has some dependency injection facilities, but it's not nearly as robust as CDI, Weld, or Spring, anything like that. But it does give me the basics. And also I'm going to put this in view scope. If you've used ICEfaces 1.8 in the past, what ICEfaces 1.8 used to do was it would kind of change the meaning of standard request scope and make it a little bit longer in order for Ajax to work properly. But in JSF 2, we now have view scope. Okay, so with ICEfaces 2, we can request scope really means request scope. We're not changing it, changing its meaning. It really means request scope. And if you want to have Ajax take place within your view, you can put your bean in view scope. Okay, so those are just some annotations that come with JSF 2. And let me just add a field here, a property. So I have a property here, it's just a string, which is called from email address. And then I have a getter and a setter. And inside the setter, we just have a little system.err.println to let us see when this gets submitted. Okay, well let's deploy the application. Let me save all these files. And the way I do that is I just take it and I drag it down here to my Liferay Tomcat. And Liferay IDE will deploy it for me. And I can see that there's this portlet is available for use. So let me switch back over to the browser. Okay, and I've created a page here called Jax. And I'm going to go to Add More. And under Sample, there it is. I find Demo 14 right here, Demo 14. So I'll just click on Add. And there's my portlet. Okay, not much to it, but you can see that I have the US English translation. That's my default locale on my browser for compose email. And this is all styled quite nicely. It looks like a Liferay out-of-the-box portlet. The label is above the text field and it's in bold. That's all thanks to AlloyFaces. That's all the CSS that's being applied thanks to AlloyFaces. Okay? And particularly with the label being above it instead of to the left, things like that. And here I have my send button, okay, and that's been internationalized as well. Well, what I want to show you is that if I type in a value right here, that's a bad email address. That's not an email address, right? If I hit tab, I don't get any feedback, right? If I go back to the field and if I clear it out and hit tab again, I get no feedback. And then I have to hit send. Now when I hit send, I have to wait for a full page postback and wait for the whole page to redraw before I get any feedback that value is required. Okay? So we're going to show how ICEfaces improves this end user experience a little bit. So let's go back to the view here. I'm back in the view, and let me just shrink the design time a little bit. And I'm going to focus right here on the AUI form, okay? And I'm just going to put in an ICE core single submit tag. Okay. And normally I like to make these self-closing XML tags, like that. ICE core single submit, okay? So just by adding this one little tag right there, ICEfaces will automatically Ajaxify my form for me. And I don't have to write any JavaScript. Now, there's a little incompatibility that we have. We have an issue filed in the ICEfaces JIRA issue tracker where there's an incompatibility between this and AUI form. So I'm just going to switch that over to just the standard H-colon form and put style class is equal to AUI-form on there. That's all that AUI form does, is it just adds that CSS style class automatically. And then down here at the bottom, I need to fix this to match. Here we go, H-colon form. Okay, so really, but that's all I did, is I just added this ICE core single submit. And that's all that I have to do in order to Ajaxify the form. Well, let's make it a little bit more interesting. Let's make it so that we use a regular expression here to validate the field. Here's my input text for the from email address. And I just put in an f:validate regex. That's something that comes with standard JSF. And I put in a pattern here, so you have to type in some characters, an @ symbol, some more characters, dot something, just to make it look like an email address. So that's what is going to validate that field. And let's customize the message that the user will get. What I'll do here is I'm going to do a paste and put in a different validator message. Let's see what I did right there. Okay, so the input text has a validator message attribute that you can put on there. And you can see I've done I18N. Liferay happens to already have translated this please enter a valid email address key. I've already translated that into many, many languages. So I'm just taking advantage of that. Okay, so let's redeploy this. And all I have to do is just do a save all. And Liferay IDE deploys it for me. And I'll switch back over to Firefox and revisit the page. And here's my portlet. It looks the same, doesn't it? But now if I type in a bad email address and just hit tab, I see right away ICEfaces automatically, what it does is it runs the JSF lifecycle and it knows what was in the browser's DOM in the first place because on the initial request it sent it there, and it knew that it just needed to insert a little bit of markup right there. Please enter a valid email address. And so that's done automatically for me. Or maybe I'll clear that out and then hit tab, and again, using Ajax and the direct-to-DOM technology, it just inserts some incremental DOM updates right there that value is required. So now, if I put in a value, that's good, then it works, and then I can hit send, and that submits the form via Ajax as well. Don't have to write any JavaScript. Okay, let's keep going with our portlet. We're going to add a recipient email address field, a subject, and a body. So here's another field we'll add. That's just a paste. It's basically the same thing. What I did right there is I just pasted in another field. It's basically a copy paste of from email address, except now it says recipient email address. Okay. So not much interesting there. And also over in the model bean, I'm going to need to add a property, right? The recipient email address. So I'll do that. So all that was a paste, and all I did was just add a property, private string, recipient email address, and a getter and a setter. Okay. And also that replaced the set from email address. We used to have a system.err.println. You could see that here in the log right there when that was being called. So that's been replaced. We've just cleaned up the code just a little bit. So let's go back to the view, and let's add a subject here. Okay, so that's just another text box, and you can see that the design time approximation now shows a from email address, a recipient email address, and a subject, and a button. Well, I've got to go back to the model bean, of course, and add the property for that. So now we have from, recipient, and subject, and corresponding getters and setters for each one. And now let's do one that's a little bit more interesting. This is going to be a rich text area. So I'll paste that in there. AUI field. Okay. And this is going to be using the Liferay UI input editor. Let's take a look at that. This is something that comes with LiferayFaces. This is Liferay comes with a CK editor deployed within it that automatically hooks into the Liferay document library, the image gallery, and all these wonderful things. And so what LiferayFaces does is it provides this facelet composite component, which is called Liferay UI input editor, and it will automatically render the CK editor from Liferay. And we've got a little validator in here that says, well, they can only enter in 500 characters, that type of thing. Okay, so the body of our message is going to be rich text where I can enter bold, italics, or a hyperlink to a Liferay document, things like that. Okay, so let's go back to the model bean, add one more property. And that was just, private string body with a getter and a setter. That's all I did right there. Well, let's save that. And we'll wait for Liferay Developer Studio here to deploy it. Liferay IDE. Okay, it's available for use. Switch back over to Firefox. Okay, click on Welcome, and then, okay, so let's zoom out a little bit. You can see I have from, to, subject, and body, and this is a nice rich text editor right here. And all I had to do was just refresh the page like that. Okay, well, if I submit this form right here, if I click on send, nothing happens. It doesn't actually send the email, right? We need to put in some business logic in order to get the values out of the fields and send an email. So let's do that. Let's go back over to the view, and let's make the button do something. So here I have a command button, and I'm just going to do a little paste there that's going to replace what, all I did was I just added this action listener right here. It was an action listener attribute, and that's going to something called backingbean.sendMessage. Well, we don't have a backing bean yet, so we're going to add that Java class next. So let's create a new class, new class, and we'll just call it backingbean.java. Okay, just backing bean. Hit finish. And you can see here's our class, which is called backing bean. All right, and what I'll do, just a little paste here. I just added that manage bean annotation again. This one's going to be in request scope. And the reason why you want your backing bean in request scope, technically this is part of the view concern of your application of Model View Controller, is when the user clicks on send or submit, whatever the button is, this bean will be instantiated and created, and then as soon as the request is complete, it goes to garbage collection. Okay, because we don't have any data in this. It's not part of the model. We don't really have any data in this that needs to survive longer than the request. So the rule of thumb is to try and push everything you possibly can into request scope. But if you're dealing with data, it's probably going to end up being in view scope or in session scope. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you how to use the dependency injection feature of the Managed Bean facility. There's a new annotation we have in JSF 2, which is called @ManagedProperty. And so let me zoom in on that. if I have @managed property and I say model bean, and then I have a little property here for the model bean and a setter, what will happen is JSF2 it does some scanning, it does some annotation scanning when it's starting up, and it will say, oh, when I create this backing bean, I need to inject an instance of my model bean inside of it. Okay, so this is automatically going to give me a reference to my model bean, therefore loosely coupling my model from my view. Okay, I'm taking the model data and injecting it into the backing bean, which is part of the view. Okay, we want to try and avoid the tight couple of our Java classes if we can. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is, sometimes we want to log some output. So maybe instead of system.err.println, we'll use a logger. Okay, so I'm just going to paste in a logger there. Liferay has a little logging API. They can leverage Log4J, things like that. Let's take a look at the LiferayFaces context. I said we were going to show you that. The LiferayFaces context is this line of code right here. Okay, this is basically a faces context, only a little more so. It's got a bunch of methods on it. Let's just show you some of the things you can do with it. Liferay faces context dot. Look at all these methods that are on here. Okay, all these things that you can do. For example, let's say you want to do get portlet request, something like that. That's very typical. A lot of guys end up writing a little JSF portlet util static class so they can get the portlet request, so that they can get the theme display, whatever it might be. Maybe they need, let's show you that, right? LiferayFaces context dot get theme display, okay? And that will give you back the Liferay theme display so that you can find out the get user, okay, and that will give you the current user dot get first name. So that's how you get the user's first name, like that. Okay, so the LiferayFaces context is a nice convenience feature that gets you a window into all things Liferay. Well, there's also the Liferay API, the service layer, and things like that you may need. Okay, well, one more method here in our backing bean. Let's actually, when we click on the send button, let's actually have it do something. So I'll click on send message. Okay, and so that was a little bit of a bigger paste. Let's see what that looks like. Let me zoom in on this. Okay. Sorry about that. So here's a method which is just called send message. And so what I do is I get the I call modelBean.get from email address, modelBean.get recipient email address. Hey, what did the user provide in the subject? What do they provide for the body? I want this to be a nice little HTML formatted message. If all goes well, I want to add a success informational message. And then the Liferay API has a static utility method called mailEngine.send, and it just sends the email. So that's all I have to do is I have to just pull that stuff out of my model and then tell Liferay to send the email. If something goes wrong, I just say LiferayFaces context add global unexpected error message, and we'll see that message up at the top. But first, before we do that, we have to add in our view, this is the last thing I believe in our view, just inside the form, we're going to add an h:\messages tag right here. Okay, and so that will just provide a message up at the top that says, oh, your email was sent successfully, or if there was an error, it will show an error message. Okay, so just about done here. I'll just do save all. And Liferay IDE will deploy it for us. Back to Firefox. Welcome, Ajax. Okay, so now let's say this is from me, Neil Griffin, and I'll send it to Steve Groninga. He's our business manager at Triton. Hello, and this is some bold, and this is some italic. You can see here, bold, italic, and so on. So we have some nice rich text. Now, I'm going to click on the Send button, and notice this vertical scroll bar over here. If this was a typical Web 1.0 type of application, and when I hit Send, that scroll bar would go all the way up to the top, right? Because it's a full page submit. So just want to show you nothing on my sleeve. I'm going to hit Send, and it didn't scroll back up to the top, right? So that form was submitted by Ajax, and you can see that your request processed successfully. All right. Okay, we only have a few minutes left, so let's go back to the slides. So that was our coding demo. And we're going to finish up talking about interportlet communication. We use IPC for short. It's a technique for sharing, essentially it's a technique for sharing data between portlets so that we can build or compose these composite applications. So what that means is, if I'm working with one portlet, let's say portlet A, whatever I do in there might affect other portlets that are on the same page. So you can achieve this technique a variety of different ways. You can use client-side JavaScript, okay, to do it, and that provides kind of a rich user interface for that. And there's also server-side techniques to do it. Portlet 2, out of the box, the standard provides two ways to do this. One is called public render parameters, and the other is called events. These are both supported by the LiferayFaces bridge. So here's an illustration of what we mean by interportlet communication. Maybe I have a portlet on the left, which is portlet A, and then portlet B and C are on the right. And let's say I click on this button right here. What that will do is that will cause the other portlets to be updated in some way. Okay, so that's what we mean by interportlet communication. If you're going to use public render parameters IPC, Portlet 2 supplies this, and the LiferayFaces bridge enables you to use this. That's basically adding a little request parameter to the end of the URL, and this is good for lightweight data, maybe just an ID of some record in a database. And so when I click on the link, what that does is that passes the request parameter, in a sense, and the other portlet picks it up and then is able to redraw its content. The benefits of this is it's pretty lightweight data sharing. It's maybe just, like I said, an ID of a record in the database. The drawbacks, though, is it requires a full page submit. Okay, and so maybe it's a potentially disruptive user experience for the end user. It can be challenging to implement. I don't think it's really the most straightforward, understandable feature. I had to develop demos for this at portletfaces.org, and as I was using it, the bridge standard helps. I should mention, by the way, that the LiferayFaces bridge attempts to implement as much of the bridge standard as possible, but since it's for JSF 2, it has to have its own API because it can't exactly obey the terms of the license agreement. So we're not exactly an implementation of the standard, but we're going to take the innovations and roll them into the standard. So when I was developing an example portlet to do this, and I'm going to show this to you, it was a little bit challenging to implement. Another drawback is you can't share data between other wars. So let's look at an example here. Okay, this is public render parameters IPC. So we have two portlets. We have one on the left, one on the right. And if I click on, the one on the left is a bunch of customers, and the portlet on the right is the travel bookings that they have. So if I click on the pencil right here next to the first one, that actually caused a full page submit. The page was redrawn, and now I can see all the travel bookings for this customer. Maybe I want to change the customer's name, maybe to Jim, and then I scroll down and I hit submit, and you'll see this is a full page submit. This scroll bar is going to go whoop, back up to the top again. But you can see that the name is now changed on the left. So it's bidirectional. We're sharing data in some way. That's using public render parameters, and this example is available for download from portletfaces.org. We also have events IPC. The benefit of this is that the portal is acting as a broker, distributing a payload to the different portlets that are interested in this data. It's kind of a publish-subscribe method, so it's kind of nice. Again, it can be a little bit challenging to implement. It requires a full page submit, again, we have that disruptive end user experience. The payload has to be serializable because it has to go from one class loader to another if they're in different wars. So let's look at a demo of that. It's basically the same type of thing. The bridge standard provides a way to do some navigation as well when you're doing this. So now if I click on Brian Green on the left, what's going to happen is it's going to not only communicate with this portlet on the right, but it's going to cause it to execute a JSF navigation rule. So I click on that pencil right there, and so now I'm editing Brian Green. I'll change that to Jim. Submit. Okay, and we can see Jim's name here over on the left. So basically the same demo, it's just using a different technique for doing inter-portlet communication. Well, my favorite way of doing inter-portlet communication is using Ajax Push. And I think this is a very compelling technique for doing inter-portlet communication. It's really easy to implement, provides a nice rich experience for the end user. There's only 3 lines of Java code. Remember I promised that earlier? 3 lines. I'm going to show that to you in just a minute. I don't write any JavaScript to do it. It behaves like a rich JavaScript-like client type of IPC, but it has none of the drawbacks because all the business logic and everything is taking place on the server. I'm not exposing any of my business logic via Ajax, via JavaScript. The other portlets on the page are undisturbed, so I get that nice, rich experience. And this is not just inter-portlet communication. It's inter-portlet, inter-browser, inter-user communication. I'm going to try and give you a takeaway of that with a chat portlet in a bit. Well, we have a very similar demo right here. This is with Ajax Push. So again, we have customers on the left, bookings on the right. But now, if I click on that, if I click on this pencil right here, that just does an Ajax partial submit to the server, which then will do an Ajax push over into the portlet on the right. Okay, so my page didn't reload. It just simply updated the DOM right here on the right. And if I want to change this name right here to Jim, all I have to do is hit tab. So please keep an eye over here. I'm just going to hit tab on the keyboard. All right. And you can see that this now says Jim here on the left. So this is, again, this is bidirectional inter-portlet communication, totally rich, no JavaScript to write, thanks to ICE Push. So here's our 3 lines of Java. In order to do this, and you can look at this code at portletfaces.org if you want to look at the source code for this demo. Basically what I do is I define just a string, which is called the customer render group. Here's my first line of code. In the constructor of my model bean, I just say push renderer add current session. I pass that string. When the bean is going to be destroyed and go to garbage collection, I just make sure that it's removed from the current session. And when then something interesting happens, like I select a different customer, I just tell the push renderer to render. That's it. 3 lines of code. And ICE Push does the rest for me.
Those constants that you pass to the push are defined where?
Pardon me?
These constants that you pass to the push render are defined?
Oh, that's just right here. It's just a string up at the top. You can give it any name that you want.
Right. Okay.
Okay, we have another demo here. This is chat. So let me sign out here and sign in. I'm signed into the portal as Neil. Let me go to chat. And in order to do this, you have to have 2 browsers going, right, in order to do a chat demo. So here I'll sign in as Steve Groninga. He's our business manager at Triton. So I'll click on chat here. Okay, and so Steve, he sees that Neil Griffin is online inside of Liferay. Okay, and let me switch over to Firefox and see if I can, hold on, chat. Okay, so, and Neil sees that Steve is online. See if I can zoom in as much as I can here. And so Neil is going to click on the chat here, and when I did that, you see how over in Chrome, Steve Groninga now has a new chat session as well. And if I scroll down here and I say, "Hi, Steve," and just hit enter, what's going to happen is that's going to trigger just an Ajax submit here on the portlet on the right, and that's going to change the model data in some way, and ICEfaces will run the JSF lifecycle and determine that some DOM updates need to take place in the other browser. So I'll just hit enter, and you can see here in the other browser, the DOM is updated automatically. Okay, 3 lines of Java, no JavaScript whatsoever. Okay, so that's not just inter-portlet communication, right? That's going to different users in different browsers. We have some additional demos at portletfaces.org. These are for Liferay in particular. Liferay comes with a directory portlet, a documents portlet, user management, and registration. But these are things we might want to fortify or change in some way. And so if you go to portletfaces.org, you can see these demos. I'll show them to you right now. Here's the directory portlet. Liferay has one already, but this one has been Ajaxified with ICEfaces. So, for example, I have 2 users in the system right here. I have Neil Griffin and I have Steve Groninga. And so if I want to search for Griffin and hit search right here, then the DOM is simply updated by ICEfaces, direct-to-DOM engine. Okay. So this is a rich version of the Liferay directory portlet. Similarly, if you look at the Liferay document library, it has the ability to have hierarchies of folders to put documents in, but it doesn't show you a tree. And so what we have here in this portlet is this is using an ICEfaces tree component in order to show the folder structure of your documents. And when I click on the different folders, ICEfaces will use the direct-to-DOM technology to just update my view for me. Okay? And I can add documents and folders and so on. For user management, if you go to the Liferay control panel, you can see I have 2 portlets available to me. One is users, and the other is users from portletfaces.org. The users one comes out of the box with Liferay. This is from portletfaces.org. This is an Ajaxified version where I can just click on the pencil right here, right, and see the user. And all that's happening is the DOM is being updated over here in the right. I don't experience these full page refreshes all the time. And finally, if I sign out and then click on create account, this is also a JSF portlet right here. That looks like a Liferay portlet, smells like one, right? Feels like one, and but it has custom fields. Like for example, favorite color, and this is a little CAPTCHA right here that's hooking into the Liferay CAPTCHA mechanism. So this is something we often have to do when we're developing portals for customers. So those are some additional things that we have. In summary, JSF, as I said earlier, is the standard for Java EE for developing web user interfaces. We have portletfaces.org, which is a community-based website with open source projects, and our mission is to showcase JSF as the premier framework for developing portlets. The PortletFaces bridge enables you to develop JSF2 portlets in general, ICEfaces 2 portlets in particular. And these portlets built with ICEfaces 2 provide rich user interfaces that don't disturb the other portlets on the same portal page. Also, we can use Ajax Push as a compelling technique for inter-portlet communication. If you need enterprise support for ICEfaces 2, that's available from IceSoft, so visit icefaces.org. If you need any professional services, development or architectural assistance or training, please contact us at Triton. That's www.tritonsvc.com, Triton, Sam, Victor, Charlie, or our European partner, mimicom.com. Again, Triton is a Liferay Platinum partner. We resell the Enterprise Edition, and so we can provide discounted pricing on that. We provide these architectural services and so on. So thank you very much, and if anyone has any questions, I can take them at this time. Any questions? We're a little bit over on time.
you offer a discount? How much is the discount?
Oh, well, Liferay has a standard price, right, that they offer, and then all the resellers compete and have a reduced price, a certain percentage off. If you need to know the exact numbers, I can provide you with Steve's business card, and he can provide that to you.
I got a quick one.
Yeah.
Now, we just saw in that Java EE talk a web management or web beans or web something.
Yeah.
Is that, and it looks similar, is that something that they derived from JSF to try to make standard, or is it the same thing?
I wasn't in that talk, so I can only guess. Were they talking about web beans?
Web beans.
Okay.
And there were a couple of different annotations.
Okay. I think that was probably
the CDI.
CDI, okay. What happened was JBoss Seam came up with some great ideas for doing context and dependency injection and things like that, to have an inversion of control type container. These are many ideas that were first brought to us by the Spring framework. And so, but Seam had a competitive way of doing it. And what happened is Gavin King at JBoss became the specification lead to standardize this approach. And so the standard was originally called WebBeans. And then for whatever reason, the name changed to CDI, Context and Dependency Injection. So the name of the standard from the standards group from the JCP is called CDI. And that's just an API. If you really want it to work, you need an implementation. And there's a couple of different implementations. One is called Weld, and that's from JBoss. Okay? So the WebBeans project basically kind of moved into Weld. Okay? And what Weld does is it provides annotations that in some way are a little redundant with the @managed bean annotation that I showed you there. A little bit redundant, but so I don't know if I've answered your question.
I think you did a little bit. So is JSF part of a standard? Is it just
JSF is a standard for Java EE. Heading out? Okay. Bye-bye. Have a safe trip. Okay. JSF is a standard, and it's the standard way of building user interfaces for web apps in Java EE. And CDI is also a standard. It's a standard for creating managed beans, so to speak, and injecting one into another and things like that. So there's actually some talk about deprecating the JSF managed bean annotation and having people say, oh, we'll just use JBoss Weld, in your application. So right now, you actually can't do that within a portal. There's an issue with Weld where they have to do some development to make it work. Any other questions?
I have one more question.
Sure.
It's more related to ICEfaces. So if you want to use ICEfaces, so it's really nice because there's no JavaScript support.
Yeah.
Which is very good. From your experience, because you can mix and match different flavors of JSF, but in practice, for example, if I want to combine components from ICEfaces with components from RichFaces or PrimeFaces or other components, have you experienced any difficulties?
Typically what people do is they pick one or the other. They'll pick ICEfaces, right? Or they'll pick one of the other vendors, RichFaces or PrimeFaces, and they basically stick with one of them.
But what about if you want to use a nice component from another?
Right. Theoretically, that's possible now. You see, what's interesting is when JSF first came out, one of the goals was, when you go to the shopping mall, do you know how you have a food court there? You have all the restaurants are right there, right? And somehow they by competing and being co-located right there, everybody does more business somehow, because I guess all the hungry people go to that one place in the shopping mall. So that's kind of the analogy I use for JSF. When it was first released, JSF just had just a few components like a text box and a button, And the goal was that you could take a little bit of Tomahawk and a little bit of Woodstock and a little bit of all these different component suites and put them all in one view. And that worked great, okay? And then this thing called Ajax happened, okay? And there was no standard way of doing that within JSF. And so the folks at iSoft made ICEfaces do it one way. The RichFaces folks made Ajax another way. The Tomahawk people did it another way. Oracle did it a different way with Trinidad, and then PrimeFaces came later, and they did it yet a different way. So that went away. We weren't able to mix and match. So I wasn't able to take like a date picker from ICEfaces and file upload from RichFaces and put them all in one app. It just wouldn't work. But now that we have JSF 2, we're all doing Ajax in a standards-based way. So that original idea of being able to mix and match these different component suites is now theoretically possible again. And so I've seen some folks use ICEfaces and a little bit of PrimeFaces and like that. So now the answer is yes, and I think moving forward only more so. The answer will be a stronger yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, sure. Thanks for coming.